This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Great Film Challenge here on the Flying Cow. I, of course, am the Flying Cow himself, Clay Johnson, and here with me today, of course, is my nephew, Aaron. Aaron, how we doing?
I'm great. What about you?
I'm doing all right. A lot has changed since the last time we recorded.
Yep.
A whole 10 minutes has gone by. I'm a completely different person.
Yep, me too.
But no, like I said in the first episode, we had a couple that we actually watched over the course of a weekend before we even knew they were on this list.
Yes.
So we just thought it would be a good idea to just go ahead and get these knocked out. We probably won't record so many in success. Although, I don't know, we might just keep watching a whole bunch of movies and then just recording when we can. Who knows how it'll go. But we definitely wanted to go ahead and get these three done while they were fresh in our minds. And so that brings us to the next film on our list. And I will say, I haven't really talked this over with you, but I was thinking it might be a good idea for us to go ahead and upload our list to my Instagram.
Yeah.
So that's on the Flying Cow Pod. That way everybody can see the list that we're working with. I will say, we haven't really talked a whole lot about the list. We can do that a little bit here. The list, I've told you, I'm interested in the list, and
yes.
I would be really interested in finding out who put it together, because it really does feel a little bit like they took inspiration from the AFI 100. Have you heard about that?
No.
So it's the American Film Institute.
Uh-huh.
And in, I believe, 1997, they basically put out a list of the 100 best American films. It's specifically films that at least had some American hand in it. Either it is a completely American film shot over here, or it at least had like American financing, backing, things like Lawrence of Arabia or
yes.
Bridge Over the River Kwai. Even though they are definitely British productions, there was some sort of American hand in it so that they could call it an American film.
Yes.
And a lot of the films that are on this list you could find on the AFI 100. Even when they revised the list in 2007, took a few off, added a few. They haven't revised the list since then. But a lot of the films that are on that list are on this list. There are definitely some that are missing. Maybe one or two that, I'm like, I don't know why that's not on there. But definitely a few that I'm like, yeah, I understand why they skipped that here and there.
Yeah.
But then there are also some additions. Things like Gladiator.
Yes.
That were not, and also Airplane.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of those have ever been on the AFI 100. If The Shining was, I think it's been removed.
Oh.
I don't think it ever was on it. It's honestly, unfortunately, a lot of awards bodies don't take horror very seriously. Yeah, I know it's silly.
That's
Aaron is giving me a look like that's dumb. And he's right. That is dumb. Because horror is a great genre with which to convey a message.
Yes.
But there are some films on the list. I mean, I will say some of the editions I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty cool, because there are some foreign films that I've not seen. There's one on there. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Let me look it up real quick. But it's like an Australian stop motion film that I was completely unfamiliar with until I saw it on the list. Give me a second and I will tell you exactly what it is called. It is Mary and Max. And I believe it's from 2009. And like I said, there's also some, Indian films that I've not seen. There's, a lot of different things on there that I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is pretty cool. I think this is great that they put this on the list. And then occasionally there's things like Gangs of New York.
Yeah.
Why that's on the list, I don't know. Makes no sense to me.
I've never watched it. Because
it's one of only 2 Scorsese films on the list, and number one, it's definitely not one of the best Scorsese films, and it's also, in my opinion, not that great of a movie.
Oh.
It's honestly kind of an odd blip in Scorsese's filmography.
Uh-huh.
Why it's on this list, I don't know. They apparently thought it was important for one reason or another. If you or anyone you know had anything to do with making this list, reach out to us. Let us know why Gangs of New York was an important addition.
I'm curious. I've yet to watch it, so
yeah. I mean, and I don't want to psych you out. You might watch it and really enjoy it and have something to say that makes me think, oh, you know what? Actually, you got a good point. But when I watched it, I wasn't super impressed. I'll just say that. But yeah, none of those, though, are the film that we are talking about today. Today, we are talking about the 2000 Ridley Scott film Gladiator. And honestly, I brought up this movie because we are recording in 2024.
Yes.
And Gladiator 2
mm-hmm.
has just hit theaters. And I have thought about taking you, but I was like, let me just check and make sure he's seen this, because I know that you've been watching some movies with your friends and things like that, right?
Yes.
So I just assumed that this would be one that you guys had watched, and I was honestly surprised.
I wish I had.
Yeah. So, like, what did you already know about the film, and what were your thoughts before watching it?
I was definitely interested to see it because I had known about it, but not a whole lot.
Sure.
And really all I had known it for was the part that everyone really remembered, I guess, was, "Are you not entertained?"
Sure.
But outside of that, not a whole lot I knew.
Yeah, honestly, watching this, I realized that there are probably a lot of catchphrases that you've heard from this movie.
Yes.
But just, I mean, did you know that catchphrase came from this movie?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any that you were like, I've heard that line before, but I didn't know it was from this?
Not that I remember.
No? Okay. Have you heard the "We that are about to die salute you"?
Maybe once or twice.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, watching this, I was like, I wonder what that's, because I know a film that we actually will be getting to the first time that I watched Casablanca.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many quotes in that film that I had heard throughout my life.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, this is the movie that's from.
Yes.
So I had this kind of moment where I was like, I wonder if Aaron is having that moment here with this film. But like you said, there was really only the one quote. There weren't a whole lot more. But that's okay. All right. So you know, the film itself, Gladiator, you know, obviously about, you know, a general that becomes a slave that became a gladiator who defied an empire. You know, that whole thing. What were your thoughts about kind of the story of Gladiator?
Like just completely.
Yeah.
It was definitely good.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's definitely been done before, like rising through and defying some big power, but I definitely like the way it was done here.
Sure.
Also thought the guy who played Maximus did really well.
Russell Crowe.
I remembered it had some kind of bird name.
Russell Crowe, some kind of bird name.
That's all I remembered.
Are you familiar much with Russell Crowe
No.
and any of his other work? No? Okay, yeah. I mean, you know, he definitely he'd been in a few movies, bigger movies before this.
Yes.
But this definitely, like, he won Best Actor for this.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was the middle of, he was nominated for Best Actor like 3 years in a row.
Oh, wow.
And this was like the second nomination. And I believe I heard something that said like he was nominated 3 years in a row and he hasn't been nominated since. Now, I don't know if that's true. I could have sworn he was nominated for like Cinderella Man or something like that. Or maybe he just missed out. I mean, I will say, like, this was kind of like the height of his career. Like, he was definitely really popular during this time in like the early 2000s. But yeah, he's definitely not done as much.
Yes.
You know, that, you know, your age group would really want. Although, a film that I've considered adding to our next horror watch list. Have you heard about The Pope's Exorcist?
No.
So it is basically a film starring Russell Crowe where he plays the exorcist to the Pope. He is the Pope's official exorcist, and it is apparently based on true-ish stories. You know, it's at least based on a guy who claims that these stories are true.
Yes.
But it's honestly like a kind of adventure film about Russell Crowe going to villages around Italy and just casting out demons. Like, honestly, like, it has the makings of like an adventure film series. Like, I really would like them to do more.
That sounds interesting.
Because it's kind of silly and ridiculous, and Russell Crowe is putting on this ridiculous Italian accent, but it's fun. It's like one of those like silly movies that, you know, is fun and enjoyable to watch.
That does sound interesting.
Like, literally, I watched it because 3 podcasts that I listened to all reviewed it in the same week. That's how, like, it was on How Did This Get Made? They reviewed it on a show I listened to called Good Christian Fun, and then obviously I listened to a critics podcast, and they reviewed it because it had just come out.
Yes.
But like, everybody was talking about that movie when it came out. It just, yeah, fun and silly. But that's not the movie we're talking about right now. So you said that you enjoyed Russell Crowe in this film.
I did.
When I tell you that he won Best Actor for this, does that make sense to you, or are you kind of like,
I've never
really?
paid attention to the awards
Sure.
at all, but I think I can definitely pick out
you can see
when
that?
someone's doing a really good job.
Okay. All right. What about, I will say, for some reason I didn't go over the cast for this. It starred Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nielsen, Oliver Reed, actually, in his final performance. He actually, I meant to tell you this during the movie, but I didn't want to interrupt. He actually died during the making of the film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they had to basically cover his last couple of scenes with his double.
Huh.
But they just shot him from behind. It was fine. Derek Jacobi, Jaimin Hansu, and Richard Harris. Had you seen Richard Harris, the guy that plays Marcus Aurelius in? I mean, obviously the first couple of Harry Potter films, but have you seen anything else that he's been in yet?
No.
No. Richard Harris was one of those actors that, I can't remember the first thing that I saw him in, but he just had such an interesting, I definitely saw him at an older age.
Yeah.
I haven't seen many younger Richard Harris performances. Richard Harris is one of those infamous young British actors that were basically constantly drunk. Oliver Reed was another one. Peter O'Toole, another one, that were basically just constantly drunk, constantly causing problems on their film sets, but everybody wanted to work with them because they were just so good. But I definitely saw him in his later years when he, mellowed out to an extent.
Yeah.
And there was just always something about him to me that was really magnetic, and I always enjoyed his performance here as Marcus Aurelius. I mean, he's not in the film for very long, but what did you think about Marcus Aurelius in this film?
It was good. The way, he really seemed devoted to the role, and it was very in character. Of course, they're acting, but
yeah,
it was. I really liked it. It was also interesting to see that he didn't even want to pass it, the rule of the empire, to his heir, and instead to his greatest leader. To
Maximus instead of Commodus. So, speaking of Commodus, what did you think about Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus? Did you feel like this was a different role for him than you've seen him play before?
Yeah. I've really only seen him in Joker like a lot of other people.
Sure.
But I think both were also really good roles.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also kind of similar because it shows the breakdown, the mental breakdown of the character. And of course, it was kind of annoying to deal with just the character who's like, no, I deserve this.
Sure.
But it was also set up that way by Marcus a little.
Yeah, I mean, he's a selfish character, which is part of the reason that Marcus Aurelius doesn't want him to become Caesar.
Yes.
But yeah, let's see. Were there any other? Did you have a favorite scene in the film? Any of the scenes in the Colosseum, probably the last fight with Maximus. Okay.
Because it kind of brought it all to it brought everything to an end.
Yeah.
But it also kind of felt, I'm not too sure, but I also felt that Maximus was pretty much resolved as a character because they took everything from him.
Right.
And he had stopped Commodus. So it's what else are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah, he'd come to his end.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Commodus just couldn't let that happen. So he just had to interfere with the fight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he fixed the fight and still lost.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely the combat scenes, though, because I just love those.
Okay.
That's all. I like the duels and all that.
All right. Is there anything else about the film that you just really enjoyed? Any lines or performances or anything else that you want to talk about before we finish up? The hamster's getting a little tired, folks.
I did kind of like the almost sort of companion that Maximus had while going throughout the Colosseums and fights and stuff.
That's
I can't think of his name.
Jaimin Hansu's character.
Yeah, the hunter or whatever.
I often have a hard time Juba.
Juba, yeah.
Yeah.
He was definitely a interesting, like, side character, whatever he would be.
Yeah, I think this was also kind of I think he had done Amistad before this, which was not a super successful film, but I think everybody was interested in him.
Yes.
And yeah, I think he's always been one of those actors that, even in small roles, he gets a lot done.
Yeah, I think you definitely conveyed the companionship between the two of them.
Sure.
And it was almost like a support between the two of them as friends. Agreed.
All right. Well, if that is it, then that is it for this episode. And I will say we haven't really talked about what the next film we're gonna watch is.
No, we haven't.
So, I mean, do you want to try to pick it, or do you want to just surprise them next time?
Let's just do a surprise.
All right. So you heard it here, folks. Next episode, it's a surprise.
Woo!
But that is all right. We're just gonna watch whatever we feel like watching, and then we'll record a podcast talking about it. That is what we will do next time. But until that time, moo.